Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to CyberSpeak Labs Defenders and Lab Coats podcast. As a quick reminder for everyone that is joining us in the lab today, please like, share, and subscribe. That's how we grow our lab, and that's how we collaborate to learn in the cybersecurity industry. Now, I do have some very, very exciting news. I did not listen to my parents when they said don't talk to strangers. I ended up talking to a stranger named Michael, and I invited him here at the podcast to join us in the lab today. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really look forward to this opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, Michael, could you kind of give us an introduction of who you are and a little bit about your background?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, just wanted to say a quick hello, hi to the CyberSpeak Labs community, and really look forward to the opportunity to share more about my experience as a seller. But yeah, Michael Corvo. I'm actually born and raised out of the Chicagoland area, so the Windy City, as we're experiencing today. With the cold weather and the cold front, but yeah, born and raised here, grew up here, whole family's here. Went to school all throughout college in the western suburbs, and really looking forward to having conversation and speaking more about myself.
Now, I have to ask you this. Do you prefer Chicago hot dogs or Chicago style pizza?
Oh, that's like $1 million question. I like Chicago style hot dogs, but I don't like tomatoes, and I do like ketchup on my hot dogs. Portillo's, if you guys are familiar with it, has some of the
Yeah.
best hot dogs in the area, and then Giordano's and Lou Malinotti's has the best pizza.
I remember the first time I went to Chicago, I was with my niece, and she was like 4 or 5 around the time, and we had to go to the American Girl doll store in Chicago.
Oh,
Like it was non-negotiable. We had to go there. Otherwise, it was like end of all, right? We
yep.
did not go look at American Girl dolls.
Yeah, I have two little ones. I'm a girl dad, and my youngest is 3, and she's got more dolls than I can imagine. And it's like the grandmas and aunts. It's like every time they see them, it's like here's another magazine, and I'm like, how many more
Oh
dolls do
boy,
they need? Yeah, yeah. So I
you're
feel
like
you
I
on that,
appreciate it.
right? Yep.
Now, Michael, when we were in the green room a little bit before we started recording, you had mentioned yourself being a teacher.
Yeah. So I'd like to think that my career and progression is a little bit different, but I think everyone has their own story and narrative. And mine was a student athlete coming out of college or out of high school, that afforded me the opportunity to go to Northern Illinois University for soccer. I quickly realized that you have to take classes at the same time as being on the sports field. And I remember a vivid conversation with my counselor at the time, and they said, "Hey, you need to have some direction by this time in your life." And I said, "Okay, well, help me." And I was like, "Well, I liked PE class, I liked ceramics, I like cooking, and I like eating." And she's like, "Okay, well, NIU doesn't have culinary arts. Ceramics probably isn't gonna, make a
Let
long
you afford
time
Chicago.
profession." Yeah. So what about being a teacher? And I said, sure, why not? So I kind of went in that direction and went to the education program, which was, top notch, great people over there. But it was very interesting because my time was spent in badminton classes, bowling classes, rhythmic gymnastic classes, and my roommates at the time were like in mechanical engineering, civil engineering. So they're like sweating about their classes. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to put on shorts and a t-shirt. I'm going to badminton. Right. So no one really thought that it was going to amount to anything, but having that opportunity to have a education degree, it afforded me the opportunity to come out of college, where I taught for, 4 or 5 years, small community, but I taught high school health, PE, and driver's ed. The driver's ed piece was
Oh, I
I
couldn't
got
even imagine.
ton of
Yeah,
stories, yeah, but
I
it
couldn't
was
even imagine.
yeah, it definitely opened up my eyes to I guess real situations out there, because I remember growing up, my driver's ed teacher would have a brake on their side, not necessarily a steering wheel. Being in the small town that I was in, I didn't have any of that. So I'm like white knuckling it the whole time. I'm trusting my life with like a 16-year-old kid, and it didn't last too long. So I wasn't, I taught for a few years. But then I quickly realized that I had more expenses than income,
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily a teacher that I think was in it for the right reasons. Like I love the idea of like teaching and helping and being able to help like mold the minds of the young. But I also wanted more out of life. I wanted to, have the opportunity to go on vacations and buy, nicer things. And you couldn't have like the marriage between the two. So it
Yeah.
did offer me the opportunity to explore a different world, which, sales is what I'm doing today for the last, I don't know, 12, 13 years.
So how did you accidentally go from teaching to sales then? Did someone like knock on your door like selling you like, encyclopedias or dictionaries and they're like, "Oh, hey." Yeah.
Close. Yeah, very close. I actually I met someone through a friend of through a conversation, and they were a door knocker for a an energy company that was an alternative option to ComEd. And I did that for 6 months, and my territory was actually the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and it was from I think August, September timeframe to January, February, the coldest time of the year. And I was getting in and out of my car, knocking on doors of companies, and basically looking at the opportunity to say, "Hey, you guys currently have this in place. You guys are using ComEd. I can offer a fixed rate." I would literally have to like grab their bill on hand, do a couple math equations on a notebook, and sign them up on the spot.
Wow.
Um, it was fun. It was exciting. Got to meet new people every day, but it was also like I don't know -20 degrees when I was in the job, and I'm like, this isn't fun. Like this is something I
Yeah.
wanted to really look at alternative options.
Yeah, and then how did you go into doing that into technology then?
Yeah, yeah. So great question. I always look at life now as not a matter of what you know, it's more of who you know.
Absolutely.
And it was such a small world because a person that I became acquaintances with was in sales as a business development manager, and we just crossed paths and had a conversation about soccer, which is my background.
Right.
And he's like, "Have you ever thought about being, in true sales?" Or different type of sales as it relates to like technology or security.
Mhm.
And I was like, I have actually, I was like, pharmaceutical, I've always been told is lucrative. And I was like, I can't even spell pharmaceutical. So I was like, it's
Oh
probably
my
not a good fit. And I was like, security seems to be a good fit because it's always evolving, changing.
Yep.
Things are always, it's always like the latest and greatest, right? So I said, yeah, absolutely. So he was like, hey, well, interview, we think you might be a good fit for the team. And I said, sure. And, I think it was a great fit. It was a great marriage to a certain degree that it got me to really understand the corporate side of things as relates to kind of navigating a large organization. My first company was Atomic Software, which was later acquired by CA, which everyone knows now as Broadcom. But
Yep.
long story short, I was just a number. Like there
Yep.
wasn't like a intimacy there. It was very much of a large organization where there's like tens of thousands of people as sellers. So it afforded me a lot of opportunity to understand what the requirements are as a business development, which if I look back at the career paths of myself as
Yeah.
well as a lot of my friends, that's usually the starting spot, right? Dialing for dollars, hitting the phones hard,
Yep.
and really kind of finding new opportunities for an AE or a field rep to kind of manage the life cycle of the opportunity.
Yeah, and that kinda transitions into my next question I had for you. Every once in a while, I get a person that's like, "Hey, I wanna go into sales, but I'm not sure where to start." Like, especially on the cyber sales side, they're like, "Should I get a security plus? Should I, like, just go to college for, a business degree?" What is your advice? I mean, your path clearly was not the I would say traditional, route into business school and then
Yeah.
going into sales. But I'm sure from, like, your years of experience, you probably can have some better insight on that question than I can.
Yeah, I think right now people are looking for people that have work ethic,
Yeah.
have the ability to not settle and want really more out of life, maybe more or less like the type A personalities.
Yeah.
I don't always think that that is like the perfect fit for sales. I think, if I look at back at like what I do, I don't look at myself as a seller. I look at myself as a problem solver.
Yes.
And I really look at things as like a puzzle. So, for the folks that look at challenges to really solve problems or really want to help people, I think that it could be a great fit, and rightfully so. One of the things I've always shared with other folks is that if I can get the attention of 20, 15, 16, 17-year olds in high school and talk about PE type related stuff or health related stuff, I should be able to keep the attention of a C-suite CISO for 30 minutes and talk about something that maybe keeps them up at night or something that is pressing to keep them out of the news, right? So I don't think there's a one size fits all. Back to your question about
Right.
who's a good fit, but I would say like people that are looking to get have that interaction with people, so like a communication type of degree, might make sense as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure with, like, when you walk in those C-suites and see boards selling something, you're like, "Let me start with I survived driver ed school 13
Yeah.
times at least."
I actually have shared that a few times
Oh my
too,
gosh.
and I've also my other go-to joke is, I'm a shorter guy, and, they always offer me coffee, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, I'm like 5'4". Coffee stunts your growth," and I'm like,
Oh
at
my
the
gosh.
time, yeah, so it's always nice to have, like, that icebreaker and have that kinda relationship being built outside of work, and kinda goes to, a lot of what I do is I have honest conversations very early often, and
Yeah.
it's hey, would you rather have a transaction or would you rather have a partnership, right?
Yep.
Like we can hug it out, high five, do knuckles for a transaction, and we call it a day. That's fine with me. But I'm more
Yeah.
of a relationship partner seller type of seller, and
Yeah.
I think that that's really what separates a lot of people kind of in my industry as well.
And I always get this question too, how much do you travel for your job being a salesperson?
So it's changed quite a bit. I think COVID's also changed it a little bit as well. But as a entry level person, kind of getting into sales, more times than none that they want that business development rep in the office, kind of more or less to kind of create that boiler room type of mentality, and feed off of the energy of other sellers in the room. But
Yeah.
then as you get into more of like carrying a bag or like an enterprise seller or a field seller at that, anywhere from call it 25% to I've had opportunities where I've been living out of suitcase for I don't know 30 weeks out of the year,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah, so it's all kind of based off of the demand of the customer, and also your lifestyle, right? Like my life has changed dramatically since then. So I have that opportunity now to have remote meetings. Sometimes that's more effective and efficient if there's multiple people, but I would never take away from the face-to-face interaction. I think that that's really also what separates a lot of sellers in the space.
Yeah, and it's just more personable. It
Yeah.
just really is. Like, I'd rather talk to a sale like me personally, I'd rather talk to a salesperson in person,
Yeah.
rather than through like social media or something like that. Especially like I have so many spam filters. I always feel bad when I don't respond, and I'm like, oh, I was like, this is worse than dating some
Yeah.
days, you know?
Yeah. And I think that the face-to-face interaction, you just get a sense of reality a little bit better than
Yeah,
through the screen. Like you can understand body language, you can understand, people that are sitting on the edge of their chair versus, sitting backwards, not looking at you or multitasking.
yeah,
So I mean, I also look at it as opportunity to separate work versus life too. And I always like to get to know people on a personal level and really understand, you know, the connections that we have in life. If I have, kids, they have kids. Like, there's a
right.
lot of times where I have no idea what I'm doing as a dad, right? Or these are new things to me. And I'm like, hey, you have two kids of yourself. They're a little bit older. Like, does it get any easier? Or
Yeah,
what did you go through when this situation happened? I think it breaks down some barriers that yeah, we're trying to do business together. I'll never distance myself from that conversation. But I'm at the point in my career where I just want to work with good people,
yep.
and I can quickly kind of identify, the people that are genuine as well, and kind of navigate those conversations.
Yeah, for sure, and it's definitely a skill that you have to build over time.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
You have to have some difficult conversations first to read body language real fast.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of books out there, but nothing beats just having that the trial and error.
For sure. Now, I'm gonna ask you this next question, and what are some challenges you might face being in sales?
How much time do you have?
Oh,
Um,
15 minutes left.
no, it's sales is high risk, high reward.
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot of upside to being a seller. There's different degrees of the challenges. If I look at entry level or people looking to get into sales, there's an art to being told no so many times in a day that you're gonna have to like either get over or
yeah,
you're gonna have to like address, right? And I think for anybody being told no over and over and over again can be very challenging. It can play a lot of
absolutely.
mind games. It can really just beat you up in different areas that you're not expecting. And I think that's one piece. I think the other one is purely based around kind of navigating internally, externally. So sometimes you have to sell internally just as much as you have to sell to the customer and kind of navigating contracts.
Yep,
What things, why are you positioning this type of discount and to get seeking certain level of approval. So I mean, the challenges spread anything from getting told no so many times to forecasting. And
yeah,
different companies have different processes where it's quarterly forecasting. My current employer, we do monthly forecasting, and the goal is always to be plus or minus 5%. So
right.
really to understand your business based off of timelines, drivers, in enterprise selling specifically, there's always things that you don't expect, right?
For
Like
sure.
I feel like I've been through a lot as a seller, but even as of late, I've experienced certain things that I never would have thought anybody would have experienced. Where people have passed away that
Yeah.
were part of our sales cycle that needed to sign the contract,
Oh,
or
wow.
being diagnosed with cancer and going on extensive leave. It's all real life things,
Yeah,
which I kind of put my a different hat on. I'm not selling at that moment and how to navigate that. It's more of like,
yeah,
hey, take care of your family, right? But there's an art to then having to take that messaging of what's reality and then telling your business
yeah,
how to overcome that, right? So
yeah.
that'd be a big challenge that I think no matter what organization you're with is really how to overcome different challenges both internally and externally.
Yeah, and there's so much truth to that, and, like, that's just not on sales, right? We could talk about leadership even, like, on the technical side, college students, oh my gosh, yes. Like, that challenge and that advice goes so many miles
Oh yeah.
wide and deep.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah, and that's not even like the only the I guess the challenges that you're faced outside of work, right? Like life
Right.
happens to everybody, and it's really an art of multitasking and being able to prioritize what makes the most sense. And I think that there's also something I've learned late in my career, but something that I kind of hold near and dear to my heart now is like the ability to say no.
Yes.
And it's okay to set boundaries, and it's okay
Mhm.
to tell people no. And as a seller, we're a numbers organization, right? Like I have an annual no a quota. I break that down by quarters. I break that down by months. I actually break it down by weeks, and having to move my opportunities accordingly. But if certain things are becoming noise, or certain things aren't really helping me be able to move those opportunities, like it's okay to say no and not feel bad about it.
Yep. And especially, like, I know some people in the field, like, regardless if they're on the sales side or the practitioner side, it just sometimes you can't say no because they feel like they're failing or, like, they can't overcome a challenge and it's not that at all. Like, you have to prioritize yourself as well at the end of the day, and you can't make everyone happy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's draining, and it's hard to be a people pleaser. And that's
Absolutely.
something that I've always more or less have struggled with. That I always looked at it as like by me saying no, it was a sense of me letting them down.
Yep.
And it's not the reality. I mean, the reality is that I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying no for right now because it's not important to me, or
Mhm.
it's not something that I need to address right now. And
Yeah.
everyone has their own priorities, their own initiatives, and at the end of the day, it's okay to stay focused on what matters most to you.
Yep, absolutely, and that definitely comes, in my opinion, with experience too, because I feel like you have to over juggle at least once to know what's important, what's not.
Yeah,
Especially if
it's
you're a good person, you just wanna make everyone so happy.
Yeah, it's definitely juggling the balls in the air, but it comes with experience too, right? Like as I mentioned earlier, like everyone has their own journey, everyone has their own narrative that they're
Yep,
writing, right? And I looked at myself as a people pleaser for many years,
yep.
and I'm also the type that gets driven by people telling me that I can't do something or that's not
Oh,
going to
you're like, "I'm
happen.
gonna prove them wrong."
That's me. Yeah, that's to a T. And it always stems back to like my high school days when my Olympic team coach was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna make it far in soccer." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna prove you wrong." I was able to get
I couldn't tell you played sports at all, not with that
yeah.
competitive attitude.
And then, like, in college, it was the same type of conversation, and then, like, I have certain leaders in my life that have told me, like, "Yeah, I don't think this deal's coming in," or, "I don't think this is actually gonna come to fruition," and, like, the way that I'm wired, it just makes me wanna, like, chase it even more.
You're like, "Let me
Um
prove you wrong."
Exactly, yeah, so, like, there's a book, called Go for No, and,
Yeah,
that's something that I think resonates very well with. It's like, I seek out those no's. Maybe that's
yep,
why, I was able to be pretty successful as a business development rep and early on in my sales career is like, the more no's I'm gonna get to a yes. So, like, let me just filter through all those no's, get them out of the way. I'll get a yes. Someone's gonna take my meeting, and then just be able
yep.
to kind of move on.
Oh, for sure. And this is going to be a good transition into probably our last question before I have my closing questions for you. But what are some wins or successful moments during your sales journey that you reflect on and you're like, oh, I remember this?
Yeah, really great question. Mine's pretty basic. The wins because I'm a relationship seller and I really pride
Yeah.
myself on relationships. The big wins for me is that not necessarily the transaction or the size of the deal. That's kind of a byproduct. I don't chase like the dollar anymore.
Right.
I look at it as more like, am I bringing value to this person? And really, maybe to answer your question, is like the value of someone taking my call when
Yeah.
I move from an organization to an organization. So over time, I've built like a network of people that
Oh, nice.
I think trust me, that I trust, that I truly want to work with. And sometimes we're just not a good fit based off of the responsibilities that they own in the organization to what I'm selling. But I always look at it as, customer A at this company. If I leave, customer A takes my call when I land somewhere else. To me, that's very rewarding, and that's very much of a sign that I did my job. And a lot of those conversations have stemmed into more of a friendship than
Oh, nice.
than just a business transaction.
Oh, I like that. That's so wholesome.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always like, selling your first $1 million deal is a
Oh, you're
big
like, I'm
milestone.
popping champagne tonight.
Yeah, and there's definitely, like, the high risk, high reward opportunities
Yeah.
and commissions and everything. That's great, but I really kind of bring that back down to the people level, and, getting emails, saying, "Hey, like, I really appreciate what you do and how you do it."
Right.
It's more of like those small little milestones that I think, I enjoy better than the more superficial ones, I guess would be a good way to say it.
For sure, for sure. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and start transitioning since we are getting close to time. And these two questions are always my fun questions to ask at end of the episode. The first one being, what is a good way for maybe our listeners to follow you on social media, or if they have questions about sales, what resources can you provide for them to connect with you, or even, just good education source?
Yeah, yeah. I would say the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. It's part of my ingredients of success that I live in the application. So feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a message. From there, more than happy to share my personal contact information, have a conversation. And as you mentioned, I travel quite a bit, and I'm more than happy to find time to meet over coffee, a bite to eat or whatever, and have conversations.
You're like specifically Chicago dogs or pizza.
Yeah, I travel quite a bit to in the Midwest, so St. Louis. I'm actually going to be down there in a few weeks. But yeah, I'm I look at it as I'm just a stone throw away from really anywhere.
Just make sure when you go to St. Louis, you absolutely advertise that Chicago pizza is way better than St. Louis thin crust. So
Yeah, there's there's the company I work for right now, Pantera. Most people look at it as a or when we have an introduction call, they're like, "Oh, we thought you were like the '90s band," and it's like,
oh my
no,
god.
not that. And then I recently found out that there's a pizza place in St. Louis called
Yeah.
Pantera too.
Yes, there is.
And so when I break bread with people now, it's like, no, we're not the pizza, we're not the band, we're a cybersecurity company, and that's actually on my list that I have to go try that pizza and see
Oh
how it is.
yes. Yeah, no, St. Louis has a really cool like Italian food area close to downtown. So if you like pastas and all that, it's very authentic. It's a very good experience.
Okay,
So
awesome.
yeah. It's called The Hill is the area.
Oh,
So
okay,
very, very fancy, like very date night fancy.
okay. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then my last question, and I know, drum roll. What is the best advice that you could have for our listeners? And this can be anything from surviving driver ed school to being a parent to even something from your journey. So, what is your advice?
Man, really great question. And I would say my advice is to try a few different things out in life to understand
Yeah.
which one truly makes you happy. And not necessarily follow the requirements or the expectations of parents, grandparents, teachers, people that maybe have a overlook kind of like your success. Like really dig into like what makes you happy on a day to day basis. And I think that will open up a lot of opportunities. And I think secondary to that is money makes the world go round, but I don't think it's also necessarily the end all be all. And if you chase a dollar, you're going to have certain end results. But if you chase the things that lead to the dollars, it's going to make you a little bit more marketable, and it's going to make you a little bit more wholesome throughout the journey.
Oh, I like that. You need to trademark that. Put it in a book. Make that your LinkedIn post. There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad I can help you with social media today.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad this is recorded.
You're
We'll,
welcome.
we'll
Well,
timestamp it.
well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us in the lab and allowing us to collaborate with you so others can learn. And your journey has absolutely been inspiring, very insightful, and can definitely be used with our listeners to help pursue maybe a career in sales or even just branch out of their comfort zone to try those new challenges and see what's going on. Again, thank you all for listening to Defenders and Lab Coats through CyberSpeak Labs. I am Reanna Schultz, your podcast host. And as a reminder, please make sure to follow Michael on LinkedIn because his LinkedIn is amazing. That's where I find my strangers to invite to the podcast as well. If you would like to have anyone join the show, if you'd like to tell your story, please reach out by going to cyberspeaklabs.com. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.